שלטון הימין בסכנה. המצביעים הערבים מגיעים בכמויות אדירות לקלפי. עמותות השמאל מביאות אותם באוטובוסים. צאו לקלפי, תביאו את החברים, את בני המשפחה, הצביעו מחל, נסגור את הפער בינינו לבין מפלגת העבודה, ובעזרתכם, בעזרת השם, נקים ממשלה לאומית שתשמור על מדינת ישראל.
First up out of the box today, this gentleman represents the 1st Congressional District of New York, a member of the Veterans, Military Affairs, and Homeland Security Committees, and as the only Jewish member of Congress, was watching the Israeli elections rather intently. Let's welcome Congressman Lee Zeldin back to MidPoint. Congressman, good to talk to you again.
It's good to be back with you. Thanks for having me.
Here we go. Benjamin Netanyahu remains in power. He has said no Palestinian state. He wants more settlements. He has angered the President of the United States. The Middle East, apparently he still has, of course, the war with Iran and so many other things to fight. Is it a good thing that he is still in power?
Well, I think that it's, first off, important to note that Americans in the United States and Israelis in the state of Israel stand together regardless of who is ever in charge of our country and who is in control of theirs at any time, now, in the past, and in the future. Right now, there is obviously some daylight between the Obama administration and the Netanyahu administration. That daylight isn't going to disappear today. Who knows exactly how the relationship is going to develop in the future. As far as what is in the best interests of America's foreign policy, we must look at Israel and the Prime Minister as a nation and the leader of a nation which is our greatest ally in the world, which is in a region of the world that is filled with a rising tide of radical Islamic extremism and a state sponsor of terrorism in Iran that is no friend of America. It threatens not just the interests of our allies, but is a threat to the United States directly.
So you see this as the best thing for everybody then?
Well, the Prime Minister is strong on national security. It's important to note that Israel has never asked the United States to fight their fights for them. We don't send troops to Israel to defend their nation. They have a defense force that fights those battles on the ground for themselves. The Prime Minister when he is advocating for the U.S. not to enter into a bad deal with Iran, he isn't just advocating on behalf of his own country, but the points that he makes of outlining what a bad deal looks like are points that should be of just as much concern for the United States, ensuring that Iran doesn't pursue uranium enrichment, that they must dismantle their centrifuges, that we aren't making permanent concessions on our side in exchange for temporary concessions on theirs. If the president was to announce a deal and the Iranians then were to refute any of the terms of that deal, then there really isn't any deal at all. And also ensuring that whatever deal would ever be reached, if there is one, that there is that access for weapons inspectors to ensure compliance. So, as the Prime Minister, and I use the negotiations with Iran as an example, the Prime Minister is very strong in prioritizing his nation's security, as he should be. We should focus on the substance over the politics. Now that the election is over, hopefully that will become easier because he is the leader of our nation's strongest ally. And when we look at some of these individual points that affect the United States directly, he often makes a lot of sense.
I only have about 30, 40 seconds left. I know we spent a lot of time on this, but I want to make sure I mention that you have a new bill out there to assist veterans. Please, 30 seconds. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, for those veterans who live in the higher cost areas of the United States, the VA home limit cap has reverted to pre-2009 levels. We want to lift that cap altogether, being that the default rate is only about 1%, which is much lower than the national average. So it's a bill to fight for veterans, especially those who live in the higher cost parts of the United States.
Your first bill, H.R. 1187, addressing the issue, provides a VA with flexibility to determine the appropriate limit for all veterans' loans. It's about time somebody stood up and did something for the veterans, and I know that you always will. Congressman, I'm so sorry that we're out of time. I know you have to run as well. Please, let's do it again soon. Thanks for your time.
Look forward to it. Take care.
Take care. Not everyone is thrilled, though, that Benjamin Netanyahu is still in power overseas. Quite a few still see it as a massive roadblock to any sense of peace in the region. As I mentioned, things like settlements, things like the Palestinians, and oh yes, Iran. Much more to come as we continue on this Wednesday call of MidPoint.